Okay, we're now at the stage where I'm going to start to finish the instrument. The first thing we need to do is to go over the whole instrument and just check it over. We're looking for any bits of rough grain, any places where we haven't quite finished sanding. So what I normally do, I go around and I just sort of mark, make little notes on some areas where I feel that there's still work to be done. For example, on the head, around the neck sometimes. Now, it helps to have a good light source. Natural light is quite good. Or something to cast some shadow so you can see if there's any strange textures that need sanding down. Just checking, we want to sort these things out before we put the finish on. Okay, I've clamped the Stick Dulcimer onto a piece of pine board and against the workbench so I can access the heel properly. This enables me to finish the heel using this cloth-back sandpaper. Okay, you can see now how the shape blends around the neck. And the same again at the heel. You can see how this has been blended in. So we've sanded this as smooth as we can, gone all over it. We've made sure that the neck is polished and smooth. Now to prepare it for varnishing, what we're going to do is slightly damp the whole instrument all over. Now we're not going to wet it. If we take a sponge, we have to wring out the sponge completely so there's no water in it. Absolutely, so all the water's wrung out of it. So it's just very, very tiny bit damp. Now that we do, we just wipe over the instrument very lightly. All this does is to raise the grain. It also shows up any inaccuracies that you might have missed, or anywhere you might have missed. It gives you an idea of the colour it will look when it's varnished as well. So we just wipe this over. Now this doesn't take long to dry, this takes like a minute or so to soak in, and all it does is raise the grain. That's it. Okay, we'll just leave it for a few minutes and then we're just going to fine sand again, probably using the 300 and the 400 grit papers. So I'm using 400 grit paper here. We're just going to wipe it down and remove any dust that remains on the instrument. You can see quite a bit of dust is coming off. And once we remove the dust, what we're going to do is apply a coat of oil. This is a mixture of linseed oil 50% and white spirit 50%, so it just diluted the oil a little bit. And we're just going to use this to bring out the colour of the cherry wood and the spruce. This dries quite quickly because it's spirit, it will evaporate. We're just going to put one coat on, and this also helps to seal the wood before we start French polishing. What you might like to do is use a separate piece of tissue paper to do the soundboard, as the walnut and the cherry do have a slight colour to them. Okay, this has been on for a while now. What I've done is I've just wiped a little bit more oil on, and I'm using a piece of very fine, I think this is 1000 grit wet and dry paper used for but in the car industry. And basically I'm just rubbing that oil coat in. There are several ways of doing it. Now some people use a cotton wool pad, and you just put that in the middle, and this absorbs the varnish. And this is how that's one way. The pads aren't very big; they're tiny little things, really. Another way is to use a rubber, an actual rubber. This is an eraser, sorry, a razor, rubber eraser, and it's just been cut sort of rounded sort of shape. Now some people have used this with quite success. If you double over the cloth, that allows some absorbency of the material. And again, you're creating a small little rubber, small hard surface that we can rub on the instrument with varnish. Now this is our varnish we made a few days ago. As you can see, the purple colour's gone, and all the pieces of shellac are dissolved. And this is just perfect now. This is ready for use. I normally use a pipette to take some out, but I seem to have lost mine, so I'm just going to pour a small amount, tiny little amount, into a little tray, into this little lid. And the first coat is just probably going to soak right through. And this dries very quickly. Within a few minutes this will just disappear. It's already dried. Okay, again we're just building up a layer of varnish on this at the moment, a very thin layer. Okay, now we can leave that for a while and then come back and then add another coat in about an hour. As I say, at the moment, the first initial coats, they're just soaking straight through. In between doing your finishing, take the pads or the rubbers and put them inside a jar, and then seal the jar so it's airtight. Now if you do that, then they're not going to dry out and get all hard, and then when you come back to it an hour or a couple of hours later or the next day later, they'll still be ready to use. Another little tip, I put some paper cloth inside the instrument, just a piece of, just like a tiny little piece, a quarter. This just stops the varnish from going inside and spoiling the label or splattering on the inside as you go. Now, even at this stage, after, I don't know, 6 coats or more, it could be left. You could leave the instrument as it is, sort of a semi-matte finish. It's a shellac-based finish. If you want to take it further and push it to a more shiny finish, then we need to. There's several more stages to go. We're going to have to keep going to build up the coat, and then we're going to have to leave it for a while, probably for a month or so before we cut it back a bit. So it depends how polished we want to make it. We can start to use the more traditional techniques of rubbing in concentric circles.